All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Coffee and Compliance webinar this morning. Really excited. I've got one of my colleagues here at Mapestry, Selene Jones, on, and we're going to be talking about some best practices for rolling out EHS software. Thanks for flipping the spotlight around, Selene, and being on the other side of this. You used to run this for a long time, so now we get to turn the spotlight on you and ask you a bunch of questions about one of your favorite topics besides plants and besides interpretive dance, EHS software. So I guess to kick things off, customer success, you're a customer success manager handling some of the more complex implementations here at Mapestry. So a lot of people confuse customer success with customer support. You know, they think you just reset passwords all day long. Can you describe what you actually do and what some of those like customer success superpowers are besides resetting passwords?
Yes, of course. I was just joking with you earlier about I know how to reset a password, but we do so much more than reset passwords. So our customer success managers, we work one-on-one with our customers to make sure that we're implementing Mapestry successfully and that they're able to use it to help meet their business goals and then track and understand their data. So we're really working one-on-one with those customers to give them as much value out of the software as possible and to make sure that we're learning and growing as a company too, to understand what will help our customers make the leap forward and become really digital innovators with their EHS software.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when you start with some of our customers or companies in general, do they have they done something like this before? Have they implemented software? What's kind of the range?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we get a good range. So sometimes people are coming in and they've been using binders for years. So this is their first time using technology. I think I had one customer say that they still had a typewriter at one of their facilities. So some people have no technology. Other people, maybe they're using Excel, maybe they have a little app that they're using. So they're just starting to dabble, but they don't have one platform for it all. And then for other customers, they're taking the leap, they're changing from another software and coming to us. So it's a good range of customers.
That's awesome. When you're talking about like the onboarding process and you're getting started, what are the roles involved with that, both here at Mapestry and just more broadly? Who's involved in that like onboarding setup initial journey?
Yeah. A lot of companies will either have solutions engineers or solutions engineers and implementation managers. So here at Mapestry, we have solutions engineers, and they work with the customers to onboard them. They're really know the technology side of it a lot more, so they're able to help them build out their forms or inspections. They're also very knowledgeable about the industry, so they really understand, okay, these are your requirements. Let's see how we can make that work within Mapestry. And then your CSM should also be part of the onboarding process, whether they're there as support to support the solutions engineer in the onboarding, or they're there to understand the pain points, the goals that you guys have for onboarding. So what we want to see to make sure that we are successful with the onboarding.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think the solutions engineers are a great asset getting into the like technical details of things where you're focused on the success metrics and making sure it goes smoothly and you're in some ways the project manager of that process.
Exactly.
It's great pulling on some solutions engineers here to actually answer the technical questions, not only on like a wastewater permit, but also like how are we going to make that work in a software system?
Exactly. Yeah, I have to give a big shout out to our solutions engineers because we'll sit on a call and be like, okay, we're trying to onboard this. And then in 2 seconds, they'll give me something or they'll show me how we should do it. And they're just amazing and they work really hard to make sure customers are successful.
Yeah, it's a great asset to have on the team.
Definitely.
What do you think for companies starting this? You know, what's the best way to start the process to work with a software company for like EHS program digital transformation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think starting can be super overwhelming, so be patient with yourself. We like to do kickoff calls to get us started. I think having a kickoff call is like the best way to get started because it's like you meet your team, you understand the pain points, the areas that they're trying to improve on from a customer success side of it, it's a really good time to identify, oh, there might be some roadblocks that you're experiencing. Oh, you have 5 binders that you have to go find. Okay, let's talk about timeline and figure out how we can support you as you're trying to do your job. So really being patient, being transparent about where you're at with your program and where you're gonna find roadblocks, and then also being open-minded to like the suggestions that customer success managers have or our solutions engineers have for onboarding. And then sometimes I've heard customers, they just review their program before they use software, and they go through and they figure out, hey, this is not working or this is working, so like let's move forward and only do this, or let's change how we're doing our inspections. So being like open-minded and able to adapt to kind of the new change with that comes with technology.
Yeah, you brought up a couple good points. One is it's a process change. I mean, regardless if you're adopting environmental software or just new financial software or new billing
Yeah.
software, whatever your company's, it's a process change. So be open to like some changes in your own internal processes around it. You also mentioned about roadblocks. Where do you see the biggest roadblocks for companies that are adopting environmental compliance software?
Yeah, I started to highlight it. It's definitely document collection is probably like the biggest one we see most of the time, especially for those companies that are coming from paper. It's a lot to digitalize your paper to find all of your requirements, especially if you have multiple facilities all over the place, with documents stored in different locations. Sometimes retrieving that data can be really hard. One thing we do is we try to be patient and work with you. So if you know you have all your SWIPs in one location, let's start there. Let's start with your stormwater program, and then as you find other ones, we'll move with you. So really being flexible with that. And then I think too, as onboarding advances and users are trained, pencil whipping has been one that that can be a roadblock for a lot of people. One thing we try to do is emphasize, especially for EHS, emphasize that um, how to use the forms, and then start showing area leads or managers how to track inspection completions, how to track task completions and creations to understand who is pencil whipping and who is not, and like just make sure the forms and tasks are being completed correctly.
Yeah, and that's a whole separate area of like showing how you can like identify pencil whipping. But the
Exactly.
only way you're able to do it with software is actually because you have the data to see, well, you've done all these inspections, but you've never created a corrective action, you never had a
Exactly.
task. If we're looking at just binders, you can't see that. So at least you know where the problems are with software, which is really nice. But I think it sounds like one of your roles is just like helping the folks on the other side like use the data once they've got it set up.
Yeah, yeah. Data isn't helpful unless you know how to use it and look at it and understand
Yeah,
it. So that's my job. And like to make sure that we're also setting you up with the right dashboards, notifications. There's a lot that Mapestry specifically can do to make sure that you're able to get all the information you need out of it.
yeah. And you mentioned dashboards in the data side. How do you use other folks at Mathistry to kind of create that? You're working with a company or a customer success manager is working with a company pretty closely. How do you like highlight that data or get them those like insights that they need?
Yeah, so right now we have these custom analytic dashboards that our solutions engineers can build out. They're amazing. And one thing is like understanding what data, like my job is to understand what data that would be helpful for them to understand or to meet their goals or see how they're doing to reach their goals. So like inspection completions, or maybe they want specific sections of an inspection to be tracked. And so I get to relay that data to our solutions engineers, and sometimes our product team too, if there's little gaps that we want to address. And then we work through how we can solve that problem using our analytics feature, and then present it to our customer, probably along with the solutions engineer, so that they can see and talk about like what else they need to see, and how to adjust the data.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty close team effort, it sounds like, on a
Yeah.
lot of this. How often are you meeting with companies, or how often should a company be meeting with their software vendor? Any recommendations on like or guidelines of like we're going through this onboarding phase, and then even after onboarding, what should a company kind of be benchmarking? What should be the expectation of their software vendor, whether it be Mapestry or somebody else? How often should
Yeah.
they be meeting with somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think some of it does depend, but I like to say that like once a week or every other week for during onboarding is really the best because then you're getting that constant check-ins. You're really focusing on the changes that are being made for a company or for our customers. They get to see how we're changing and making and the steps we're making towards making them launch. And I think that's crucial. And then for us, it's helpful for us to check in and say, hey, can you review this? Does this look okay? Spend some time in the app with us. Let's figure out what's working, what's not. So I really like that frequency. And then for moving forward post launch, I think having those check ins pretty regularly post launch is really nice because it's still going to be a little bit of a transition. People are still ramping, they're still training. So, like a monthly check in, whether it's like a 30-minute call or an hour call to just say, how's it going? Where are the areas that people are struggling in? What can we do to better support you? And then doing those quarterly or annually check-ins that are like really data driven, where you're looking at, okay, let's look at your success metrics. Let's talk about your business goals. How are we meeting those goals? What areas are we not meeting? How can we make sure we're getting there next year, next quarter? That's what I recommend.
Yeah, and you mentioned the business goals. How tied to the to companies should a customer success manager be around their business goals and objectives? Like, do you pay attention to that outside of like that specific meeting, and what are you trying to think about in terms of like how you can help them in their business?
Yeah, I like Maya, our VP of customer experience, always says that our goals as a CSM should be the customer's business goals. And so then we take those business goals after our meetings and make sure that we are advocating for them when we're talking to product. We're saying, like, this is what they need, so can we put this in? Or we're talking to solutions engineers to see if there's other ways that we can find to help them meet their goals. So it's really our goals, and it's really something we're thinking about after we have our call with them as we're talking to product about, hey, what do we need to change? What can we fix? So it's kind of constant, I'd say.
Top of mind, keeping them in the. Where do you see the biggest value for a customer success team, maybe to a company that's adopting software? Really, at the start of software onboarding, where can a customer success manager help a company early on in the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think customer success managers have been through onboarding so many times that they're really knowledgeable about what's worked well for other customers. And I think customer success managers can help those customers identify goals really early on so that they're able to see small wins. And like sometimes onboarding can take a little while, and so having that customer success manager say, hey, you did a great job, we've onboarded you for this, you've trained, good job. Like you're like being that support and being that cheerleader for them, because onboarding is taxing and tiring and on top of your job, but also making sure that they see the goals and the strives they made to reach their successful onboarding.
Yeah. So what happens when they're the worst onboarding experience ever? You don't give them that critical feedback in the moment?
Oh, we do. I think one thing we've been trying to do more is having post onboarding or even sometimes mid onboarding, depending on how we're phasing, feedback sessions. And it's a really
Yeah.
great time. We recently did one with our customer, and it's a good time for them to give us feedback, but us to
Yeah.
give them feedback and kind of collaborate a little bit, see, okay, this isn't working well or this worked really well. We're always learning and growing, so we love feedback. We love to give feedback too, so it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to have a really deep relationship, and I think that's the objective of a great customer success manager is to build that relationship where you're going to push a company forward in their
Yeah,
program. It's not just software; it's like the whole program's getting pushed forward. So that's
exactly.
awesome.
Yeah.
Switching gears completely, like you're working usually with like a corporate team or a central EHS or environmental team. How do you ensure the folks that are using the software to do some of the basic site compliance tasks like plant managers, maintenance supervisors, they can be a little removed and it's probably not their decision. They're just like, hey, use this software system. How do you ensure they adopt it, number one, and then find value from environmental software?
This is a fantastic question and something that I think often gets overlooked until onboarding is done and we're training and people are like, what is this? I never knew about this. So I like to start from the very beginning. When we're onboarding, I want to pull one of those area managers, one of those site level users who's actually at the end of the day going to be going out there and completing these inspections. I like to pull them in as we start to QA or review everything we've set up and have them go out, do some inspections, tell us what's working, what's not, what's clunky or what forms need to be edited. That way we're really making it so it's user friendly, so the people doing the inspections have some say in it. I found that that really makes a strong champion at like a site level, and then they can go around and as others are starting to get trained, they're there, they're excited about it, they know what to do already, and that really spreads that like, okay, this isn't that bad, like others are doing this. So that's where I like to start. And then training is critical. I think making sure that they're well trained, they have those resources that they can go back to, they have the recordings of the trainings, because everybody has questions once they're in the software. Training is easy. Actually using it is where they have questions. And then the final thing is to make sure that our app and our everything we set up is actually saving them time, making their lives a little easier. So that part of that is like setting up their notifications so that they're not in app Mapistry every day trying to figure out what they need to do. They're getting notifications telling them, hey, it's time to do an inspection, or this is what's coming up this week. And so that they're able to prepare for that without having to spend time flipping through a binder or searching what they need to do. And then also just being open to their feedback. I think this is huge post launch, like listening to them and when possible, implementing their feedback and showing them, hey, we're listening, we're here to support you, is really valuable and makes them feel heard and makes them feel like, okay, this isn't a software that is just hard to use and wasting my time. It's a software that's going to make my life easier. And also they're going to listen to me when I have suggestions.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. Is getting that early champion, but also like making them a champion and keeping them a champion throughout it.
Exactly.
Where do you find they find like a frontline person or field staff find the biggest value from an efficiency side? Is it just that they don't have to go search for anything, or where are they finding the most like time savings?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One is the notifications definitely, or like being able to go to their dashboard and see like yellow or red and know, immediately, okay, this is what I need to do. Having those tasks assigned, having those photos. And then on top of that, I think the mobile app is huge. Like people out in the field every day, they don't want to go back in, find a piece of paper, go back to the site. If you're already at your dust collector and you're like, oh, I need to do this inspection, you can just pull out your phone, find your inspection, do it right there, and then move on. I think that makes life a lot easier for a lot of people and a lot less like back and forth.
Yeah, yeah, you've got a million things on your plate. If you're batching concrete, you don't want to have to run and figure out where your dust backhouse inspection form is. Um,
Exactly.
Higher level, what are some common like success metrics companies use, and what should people be thinking about when setting maybe KPIs or goals? Or we implemented the software. How do we know we're successful with it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. My go-to always is going to be inspection completion rate. I think that's a really great baseline to figure out, okay, are people even doing your inspections? Are they doing them on time? Are they fully completing them? Are they partially completing them? Um, that's really good, especially for managers with like a lot of areas, or for companies that are just spread out. I think understanding what areas are completing the inspections, what areas are not, that helps us understand, okay, like you're this area is doing really well, but this area is not. Maybe we should focus on this area and help them improve their inspection completion rate. And then another one is task creation and completion. I think it's huge to understand what tasks are being created, and if they are, when are they being completed? I think task creation also helps us understand if somebody's pencil whipping or not, because if you're seeing somebody create tasks, you know that they're actually in Mapestry, um, going in there, taking photos, taking tasks, like actually doing their inspections, not just checking yes or no, and flying through it. Uh-oh, I think.
Sorry, Celine, had a little
Did I?
technical difficulties.
Oh, no worries. Um,
Uh, and one other question for you is like, how should a customer success manager really be working with companies beyond just the onboarding and like making sure you're in alignment on success metrics? Like, how else should they be working with companies?
Yeah, I think customer success managers should always kind of be checking in. You should also know how the industry is doing so that you're able to like actually check in and be like, "Oh, I heard this is happening in your industry. Like, you want to talk about it? How is it affecting you?" Recently, I think a big one is like hiring has been really hard for a lot of companies. They're seeing a lot of um, struggle, or they're struggling a lot finding employees, and like talking to them about that, talking about how that's affecting their program, their EHS software usage. That's critical. And then also doing those quarterly check-ins or those annual check-ins where you're sitting down, you're talking about, okay, this is what our software um, has, like this is new software features, and I think this would be good for you because you said last year you're having this problem. Let's talk about how we can implement that. So identifying ways that we can improve their program based off of the software that we're building. Yeah. Ooh, there's two of you now.
Yeah, a lot of software crashes on the webinar side.
No
Final
worries.
question for you is, what's giving you the biggest or the most satisfaction in the customer success role or just working with companies?
Yeah, I love this question because it truly is my customers. Like, I work with some amazing people, both on our team and with our customers. Recently, we went on some customer visits, and I think that really hit home where I was like, wow, like you're using Mapestry in the field. This is how you're using it. And they talk about the ways that they were able to like make their inspections so much faster, go around and have check that everything is compliant and have that record. And it was just so meaningful to have them share their experience with Mapestry and show us like what they do on a day-to-day, because I sit behind a computer screen. I don't get to go out in the field every day. So it was truly wonderful to see everybody in person. And if customer success managers are able to do that, I highly suggest it. It gives a lot of meaning to what you do. And then it also makes you really appreciate the people who are using your software and everything they do every day, and helps us build really good relationships with our customers.
Yeah, it's fun to actually see it, live in the fields, like software being used that you're
Yeah.
working with folks on. That it's just an incredibly rewarding experience.
Yeah.
We've got some audience questions, and one of them is around how do you prepare like a regulatory inspector or a permit inspector to switch from that binder to
Mm.
a dashboard or electronic records? How do you, maybe you as a customer success manager prepare a company to then go educate a regulator around that or an inspector around that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think the biggest thing is making sure your team is fully trained on where everything is on Mapestry. We've had a lot of customers say that their inspectors love Mapestry because it's so easy to see everything and see what they're doing and see the green check marks and click into it. And then if you're on that site and you're the one showing the inspector, just be confident in what you're showing them. And using Mapestry is huge because um, usually inspectors really like Mapestry. It's just making sure that you understand how to use it and show them what they're looking for. So understand how to download inspection forms and send it to them. Because we get a lot of times that inspectors will come and look at it and they'll say, hey, can you just send me the download of this or like the PDF copy? So knowing how to do that is really crucial. And then just knowing how to show them like previous year's history. So clicking that back arrow to show them last year's or the years before that. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a couple key skills. Download forms, know how to like pull a date range, and then
Exactly.
just, I think I've seen it too, is just educating the inspector of like, we've got this compliance calendar right
Exactly.
there on our screen, all green check marks. And usually the question is, do you want to see one? And we'll just click on it and open it up. And yeah, it's just a little bit of coaching to get, a site manager confident enough to do those 3 or 4 things of like pulling records, changing dates, and then just kind of pitching the inspector on like the green check marks show, I'm tracking it automatically.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time, Selene. Thank you
Yeah.
for taking a break from, resetting passwords all day. Uh,
Exactly.
and sharing a little bit about, I hope everybody on here got a little bit of like insight into like the customer success manager role and just some of the stuff we do here. But I think these are broadly applicable if you're using really any kind of software systems, and what you should be looking for success metrics, how often you should be meeting with like a customer success manager. If you're implementing other software systems, asking for solutions engineer help for more technical implementations. And then if anybody wants to learn more about how to use the data, reach out to Selene, myself. We've got some webinars on like how to translate that inspection data into figuring out who's pencil whipping your forms after you've implemented software. So thank you, Selene. Have a great day, everybody, and enjoy.
Thank you so much.